Welcome to episode 304 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. Joining me in a moment is Charles Brewer, CEO of Pos Malaysia. But before we get to Charles, a quick reminder about the 22nd International Delivery Benchmarking Workshop being held in Oslo from the 20th to the 22nd of June, looking at ways to make letter delivery more efficient, coping with letter delivery volumes plummeting, let's be honest, as well as the growth in parcel volumes. Go to plethora.co.uk, that's plefora.co.uk, for more information on the International Delivery Benchmarking Workshop. Now, let's get to Charles Brewer, CEO of Pos Malaysia. I'm here with Pos Malaysia CEO Charles Brewer. Charles, we're going to have a conversation about strategy and a bit later on about sustainability. Let's start with the strategy part of things. You took up the position as CEO back in 2021, so about 18 months ago, if I've got it right. And, I'll let you talk us through. How did you start? Sure. What were the goals, and what have you achieved so far? That's a lot of questions to start with. All right, Charles, over to you.
Thank you. So first of all, Ian, it's really great to see you. We were just talking before we started recording. Last time we did this was in 2017, which it feels like yesterday. So it's really great to see you, and I'm delighted to be here at Leaders in Logistics, which is going really, really well. I thought this morning was fantastic. A lot about sustainability. In fact, tomorrow is all about sustainability, but we'll talk about that later. So as you said, I came back to Malaysia, my third time living in Malaysia, came back in August 2021 and took over Pos Malaysia as a group CEO. And fundamentally, the sort of remit I was given by the board, who are a fantastic board, was to transform, turn around Pos Malaysia. And I think that's really important, those two words, turn around and transform, because I think sometimes people sort of get a little bit confused around, is everything transformation? And I made the point earlier in today when we had the panel that you can't really start adding the glitter until you've got the basics right. And to the point, when I came in August 2021, there was a lot that wasn't quite right with Pos Malaysia, and just some of the core things that we ought to do as a logistics company. So, for example, our parcel delivery performance was around about 48% on time, which is nowhere near acceptable, as you would know. We'd shut down customer service, our costs were out of control. I mean, there was a rake of things. In fact, I spent the first 90 days just listening to our employees, asking them, and they're great employees, by the way, listening to our employees, talking to customers. So if you ask the sales team, why have we not got good market share, they'll tell you it's price and blah, blah, blah. But when I spoke to 300 customers, I think, in the first week that I was back in Malaysia, and just asked them what was going on. They were telling me it's around sort of proactivity, positivity, speed, response times, customer service levels, nothing to do with price. So spent a lot of time listening, and then from there we built our strategy, to your question. So our strategy comes in three parts. First and foremost was fix the basics. We called it simply fix the basics. To get the turnaround going, you've got to have that sort of right sort of the operation working in the right fashion. That was goal number one. Sort of phase two was around transforming the core. So now starting to talk about digitalization, customer journey, and those types of things. And then phase three, which we're just touching on now, is all about how we create incremental value going forward. So if you've got a really good logistics operation that's pretty much transformed, now you can start thinking about how do you create future values. So we're somewhere between 2 and 3 as we speak right now.
Can you just expand a bit on where Pos Malaysia sits in terms of the competitive environment as well? Because when it comes to the postal world, we often think about the protected and the unprotected sides of the business. So can you give us a bit of an outline of where you sit in terms of the letters business, how protected that is, and the parcels business and how competitive that is, and then the other business that Pos Malaysia is in and how competitive that is, and where you see those business streams going?
Sure. So like most postal operators, the world around us has changed quite significantly, even before COVID. I think COVID obviously accelerated many of the topics that we're going to talk about, but Pos Malaysia is already operating in a fairly competitive environment, particularly on the parcel side. So again, like all other postal operators, we have that monopoly on mail, which is great. But mail volumes, even though we still do 1 million a day, and we do them, we're at 90 5% on time, which is really fantastic. Again, going back to when we started, it was around 51%, so that's really pleasing. So we provide a great service. We cover every single geographical area in Malaysia, delivering to more than 11 million addresses each and every day. So mail is a good business, a healthy business. We have 6,000 plus postmen who do an amazing job every single day. And that has two parts to it, regulated and unregulated. So to your question, we typically focus around on price improvement programs on the unregulated and not the regulated stuff. So that's mail. And the only problem with mail, of course, is like every other postal operator, it's declining and does so each year. Pre-COVID was single digit, low single digit. During COVID, that went up to double digit, low double digit. And now we're back into a single digit decline. But it's going to continue. It's unlikely to grow in any particular year. So really, it's about maximizing that opportunity for the rest of its life and creating S-curve opportunities in mail, whether it be ad mail type business that we work on, or geo locating for customers who want to really get very clever with their marketing activity. So there's things we can do that create value curves, but it's going to decline. And then on the parcel business, so that's, like most postal operators, we're transitioning from being a mail company that also delivers parcels to being a parcels company that also delivers mail. So that's what we've been focusing on. That round of applause is not for me, by the way. So on the parcel business, that's a really tough space in Malaysia, and it is for many markets. We have one of three factors in terms of challenges. One is macroeconomic. It's quite challenging. So just like every other country, inflation, cost of living is going up. So people have less disposable income and have to make some tough choices about where they spend. So that impacts how much parcel they buy online. Secondly, we've got two platforms that dominate Malaysia. They probably have about 55 to 60% of the market. And they, like many other markets, they're insourcing their logistics, so captive logistics. So that means what we were doing for them, they're now doing for themselves. And the third thing is we have a lot of new tech startup, I wouldn't even call them startups these days, but a lot of new courier companies coming into Malaysia with fairly low regulation. They can come in quite easily and start operating, and they operate with big PE funds and big VC funds, which means they price very competitively to take market share. That makes my life even tougher. So parcel is a tough, and to your question, a very competitive space. Then we have retail. So we have 631 retail locations, about 3.2 million square foot of retail space. That's fantastic. So it's a loss leader for most postal operators. So we're always looking at how to optimize that network. But part of our transformation and part of Pos Malaysia 2.0 is to leverage that footprint. So what else can we do in those retail points that we don't do today, whether it's electric vehicle charging outside, whether it's F&B selling inside, whether it's comfy and medical, whether it's pharmacy, prescription, and many other things besides coffee, tea, you name it, but effectively becoming a retailer. So that's a really interesting space for us as we start to learn how to use our four walls, our 3.2 million square foot of retail. How do we use that to create value for that retail space? And that's our third area that we're working very hard, very, very heavily on at the moment, yeah.
One of the common themes, I suppose, with a lot of postal operators right now is about this idea of modernising parcel delivery. What's happening in terms of things like, what should we call it? The communications with the consumer, the visibility of deliveries, and also, so in other words, investment in technology. And on the other hand, the investment in facilities, so whether it's sorting facilities and things like that. Is there anything in those spaces you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. And on 2 points. So on the first one, in terms of consumer communication and visibility, that's fantastic. If you go back, when we last met in 2017, there were maybe one or two companies in the world that could help logistics companies or postal operators provide that sort of telematic technology for courier delivery that optimized routes and created that visibility to the consumer. Very few companies around. Today there are hundreds, so it's quite useful. So we, like many others, take a SaaS model to that, and so if you're a Malaysian consumer, we do two things which are really quite cool. One is you get an ETA, so when you check out on the store, you get an ETA when it'll be delivered. That's unique. No one else in Malaysia does that. We're the first people to do that. So that's that sort of Uberization, if you like, of when will your taxi arrive, or in our case, when will your parcel arrive, because I think that's really important from a consumer. They want to know when it's going to be there. And the second one is we do this, so WhatsApp is really big in Asia, and unlike SMS and other products elsewhere. So when our couriers take out the parcels in the morning and they scan the shipment, that sends a message to the customer saying we're coming to you today, and that allows the customer to do in-flight changes. For example, I'm not going to be at home, can you do something else with it? So that and it's fascinating to watch. The communication between the consumer and the courier is quite personal, so, and then most of them know their names and they know who they are, so it's a really nice sort of relationship building experience, and it's good for them because they can trust when the parcel's coming. So that's on that side. On the other place, that's really a really interesting point. In my previous experience with Canada Post and with Deutsche Post DHL, we were heavily leveraging automation to lower the cost of production or improve service or improve safety. The big difference in Malaysia vis-a-vis working in Canada or working in the US or working in Western Europe is that the cost of labour is actually significantly lower. So working out what that return on investment is going to be on whether it be sortation systems in depots or whether it be visual identity at going through the sort system, whatever it may be, working out what the return on investment on that is actually quite a hard exercise in terms of do you get the value payback, because the cost of sort of salaries in Asia is significantly lower. So right now we have a state-of-the-art automated hub where we put all of our parcels through, and then at local centres it's fairly small automation solutions that we use. We haven't gone fully automated because there's no sort of absolute return in the first place. Yeah.
Now, Malaysia itself is an interesting country. You've got a major population centre, and I imagine you've got some fairly sparsely populated areas as well. What's your obligation there with regard to delivery and retail presence and things like that?
Yeah, under the USO we have to go everywhere and provide all services. So you find us in the most remote places. I've been in this business now 35 years, and I'm always surprised. I was in East Malaysia about a year and a half ago and saw a horse go past me with a Pos Malaysia employer on it. So we have people delivering on horses, we have people delivering on foot, we have people delivering in boats. It's a lot of islands in Malaysia, so we go to a lot of islands, but that's our obligation. And there's two ways you can look at that. You can look at that as a really expensive and costly network to try and support, and it is, there's no question about that. But the alternative way to look at that is that we're the only people that do it. And so when we're talking to customers about why they should use Pos Malaysia, which is a much-loved brand in Malaysia, a big part of that is we're the only company that has that reach and goes to every single destination. You don't have a sort, split, whatever else. It all goes through Pos Malaysia, and at a fairly low cost. So the postman that we have delivering to all those 11 million addresses, it's a fairly low cost of delivery in terms of end-to-end cost. So we have, I think, it's a unique advantage vis-a-vis what anybody else has. And then similarly to the same point, that retail footprint that we have that I talked about, that we're transforming and becoming the retailer of tomorrow, is across 631 locations, and where we have retail locations, some of the more rural areas, no one else exists, and so we're serving the underserved, and that's really important. So if you go back to sort of what our purpose is all about, connecting Malaysians, that's really important, and that sits well with our employees, it sits well with our consumers, it sits well with me, that I know by having that facility in Tawau or in Sipadan or Sandakan or wherever it may be, no one else is there. And if we weren't there, we wouldn't give them access to pharmacy, doctors, shipping, mail, etc., etc., etc. So I think that's something that we should be very proud of and leverage, not try to reduce.
Now, there's so much more we could talk about in that regard, but we might just quickly detour a little bit, Charles, to the issue of sustainability, because just recently, Pos Malaysia announced its first electric vehicles. Just tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
So this is, I'm super proud of everything we're doing in Pos Malaysia, and the team are working so hard. We call them wearers, which translates to heroes. And they really are, they're a great team. But one of the things I'm probably most proud of just recently is, as you just mentioned, we just launched our sustainability roadmap, which has us commit to net zero by 2050. And as we were talking about before we got on air, there's a lot of greenwashing going on around, sort of people saying they're doing things and maybe they're not. We worked really hard, or my team in the ESG team worked really hard with a really good consultant to develop our roadmap, and we used, and I think it was really important, we used 3 C's all the way through it, which was, can we afford it? Cost. So can we afford it? Because there's no point in saying you're going to do it if you haven't got the money. Is it commercially available? And I'll come back to that in a second. And do we have the capability to execute? So we developed a plan across 6 work streams. So delivery methods, fleet optimization, buildings, waste, eco-consumerism, and digital training. And to the point about that sort of, is it commercially available, the second C, in Malaysia, they're only just bringing in commercial electric vehicles, not passenger vehicles, but industrial commercial vehicles. So the availability of two-wheel. We have 6,000 ICE bikes, which we're going to be taking off the road. We have 4,000 four-wheelers, and then we have another 150 trucks. So the first question you have to ask is it commercially available and what price? This is the first thing. So we work really, really hard across each of those 6 work streams to look at what can we do, what do we have capacity to do, what can we afford, and is it available? And now we have a really good plan. And as you mentioned, the first 200 electric bikes are going live as we speak. We now have our first fully electric facility, which is amazing. We're working on how we can use solar power, renewable energy, to feed those vehicles, which is a really important piece. It's one thing to have an EV, it's another thing to make sure the electricity comes from renewable sources, so we're working on that. And we now have 8 buildings with solar panels on them, and we're going to 36 by the end of next year. We've got to go to another 600 over the next 5 years. We're taking all of our packaging, in which we have a lot of packaging in this industry, and it has to be 80% sourced from recyclable packaging or be recyclable. We are using BEMS, Building Energy Management System. So, you walk into a building, the lights come on, and when you walk out, the lights go off. So you can be quite smart and clever, and in the most part, from an OPEX perspective. So with the partners we're working with, as opposed to it being a CAPEX outlay, operating in an OPEX way. So to give you an example, we put solar panels on a building. We don't pay for the solar panels, we share the save. So the company that puts the solar panels on and us, we share that save, which is a brilliant business model for us, for a company that's got limited cash flow at times. So all of what we're doing is doable. It has us getting to net zero. It's 2050, but don't tell anybody I'm targeting in 2040. So it has us getting to the promised land as fast as we possibly can, and our employees love it, and that's really important too.
Charles, we can keep on talking, but I fear we're running out of time, and we're starting to be surrounded by people here, everybody. So I don't think we thought we'd found a quiet spot, but the vacuum cleaner proved us wrong. Charles, a fascinating story, and you're only 18 months in, so there's plenty to come, isn't there?
Lots and lots more to come. I'll see you in a few more years and we'll do it again.
Excellent. Charles Brewer, Group CEO at Pos Malaysia, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thank you very much, Ian.
Coming soon on the Postal Hub podcast, Marcus Reckling, CEO Germany for DHL Express. We're going to talk about e-commerce, cross-border and sustainability. We've got Anne Snitko from Omnic returning to talk about parcel lockers. Johan Peters is going to join us to talk about urban logistics, and many other fabulous guests, too numerous to mention. Make sure you don't miss any of these great episodes. Sign up for the Postal Hub podcast e-newsletter. Go to thepostalhub.com and sign up there. You can also subscribe to the podcast in your podcast platform of choice. Please also, when you subscribe, leave a rating. 5 out of 5 would be ideal. And leave a review if you can. That'd be great. Always helps. What does it cost you? A few seconds. And it helps me a lot. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. What else can you do? I've got 2 other newsletters. Daily Delivery Digest, all the headlines from around the delivery world, straight to your inbox every weekday. And the Decarbonising Delivery newsletter, which is a regular newsletter on sustainability in the last mile. If you want to contact me about anything, you can subscribe to them at thepostalhub.com, obviously. What was I going to say? Something about emails. Yes. If you want to email me about anything at all, my email address is ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in. I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.